It's wonderful to be with you all tonight. Jack Chen and I go back, I don't know how many years now, probably 5 or so, and it's terrific work that he's doing, trying to bring the new advances in brain science to the Chinese culture, either in China itself or to Chinese Americans, mostly in California. And it's a wonderful challenge and opportunity, and I've been trying to help that effort in my small way the best I can, and I'll try to advance that effort tonight. Now, Jack said that you're interested in learning about how to help your kids pay attention and focus on what really matters. And you know, that's begs the question, well, what does really matter? I was saying that begs the question, what matters most? And for you, a Chinese American audience, I think that immediately gets to how American do you want your children to be and how Chinese do you want them to be? And what are the differences? Well, first of all, in a general sense, what do you want for your children? And most parents around the world want the same things. We want our kids to grow up to be, most of all, happy. Although maybe in a Chinese culture, that word is not as important as it is in American. Happy is usually at the top of the list. If you ask an American parent, what do you want for your children? We want them to grow up to be happy is right at the top. But then the rest are common to all cultures, I think. Successful, achieve their dreams, achieve their goals, stay out of trouble, be good people, feel fulfilled, feel satisfied, stay healthy, have children if they want them. The goals are pretty much the same as you look around the world. And then the question becomes, what do you do to get there? Once you've decided what you want, and as I say, that's not a trivial decision, particularly for you all as Chinese Americans. Then the next question is, how do you get there? And how do you get there? There's basically 2 models of raising children. There's the request and punish model. And then there's the inspire and encourage model. And we actually know which model works better. It's no longer up for speculation. But before I go into which one does work better, the natural instinct, the most common question any parent asks me is, how do I get my kids to do what I want them to do? That's what parents want to do. How do I get my kids to do what I want them to do? I left you with 2 questions. Which works better, the request and punish model or the inspire and encourage model? And I also left you with the question, how do I get my kids to do what I want them to do? And the answer to both is pretty similar. The data is very clear. Punishment doesn't work. Inspiration does. The reason the first model, the punishment, request and punish model, is much more commonly practiced is because it's so much easier. It's easy to make demands and punish children if they don't achieve those goals. And people being people follow the path of least resistance, and that's what happens because it's the easiest way to raise a child. So while the punishment, request, punishment, demand, so on model is practiced much more commonly, it does not work nearly as well as the inspire and encourage model. And my job right now is to sell you on that, because I'll bet a lot of you are shaking your heads and saying, well, the way I was raised, I was beaten with a stick if I didn't do what was right. I lived in fear of my parents, and I felt that I had to obey. That's not what leads to enduring ambition and success. And the same thing of how do I get my kids to do what I want them to do? The best way is not to instill the fear of punishment in them, but to instill instead a feeling of connection. And a very good practical way of doing that is to spend 1/2 hour, just 1/2 hour a week with each of your children of what I call special time. A 1/2 hour where the agreement is we will do anything you want as long as it's safe, legal, and we can afford it. For that 1/2 hour, we will do anything you want with the agreement that neither one of us will be on any electronic device. So we're not going to spend the time playing a video game, and we're not going to spend the time you talking to your friends, texting, and me talking to mine. We're going to put aside our electronics, and beyond that, we'll do anything you like to do for 1/2 hour. That is like preventative maintenance. That's like taking your car in to get the oil changed, so you don't have to get the engine block replaced. That bit of special time, a 1/2 hour a week with each child, you'd be amazed how much they want to do what you want them to do. You're not having to bribe them, punish them, scare them, strike fear into them. You are finding that they want to be with you. They do feel inspired by your message. They are listening to you because you have planted, you put in that special time. An analogy or a comparison that I like to make is imagine a farmer raising his crops. Can he punish his crops into growing? If they're not growing, does he say, okay, I'm not going to water you for a week, that'll show you? Obviously not. Well, honestly, raising children is not terribly different from working a farm. And you get the best results by regular watering and good fertilizing and getting blessings from above by decent weather, so there's always a bit of luck or the grace of God or whatever power you believe in. But aside from that, the elements you can control are the water and the fertilizer and the, getting rid of the weeds. And a lot of being a parent is that. It's proactive. And so that special time I just mentioned is like watering. And trying to offer advice is like pulling out the weeds and then monitoring the connections they make. Similarly, fertilizing is exposing them to enriching activities, at school or in the community, whatever, presenting them with the opportunities of learning to play an instrument or play a sport or join a choir or a band or, all of those. So those are the ways we parents act like farmers, watering, fertilizing, and praying for enough sunshine so that they'll grow. It's not through punishment and fear, even if that was the way you were raised, and it was the way most of us were raised until recently. It's not through punishment and fear that you get the best results. You get the best results through, watering and fertilizing, weeding, and I pointed out the equivalence of those in what a parent does. I left off. I was going to talk about the elements that you might think are the most difficult to control, which are the elements that make childhood today unique, namely the presence of electronics, namely the social media, namely the cell phone and the chat rooms and all the various opportunities that kids have to engage electronically. And you may think that's the worst weed of all as a parent. My suggestion is to not think of that as either a good thing or a bad thing. It is, depending upon how you use it, it's either a blessing or a curse. But there's no doubt that the defining factor of current childhood that differentiates it from my childhood, or probably yours, is the ubiquitous presence of electronic communications technology. No doubt about it. that is what makes childhood today different.